It's November 7th, 2024.
I turned that TV off.
And there's no sound. It's November 7th, here we go. It's November 7th, 2024, and I'm with Mr. John J. Jeckovich, and we're reading his book, Their Mother's Sons, that he wrote approximately 25 years ago, and it's almost 900 pages. Mr. Jeckovich was a World War II veteran, highly decorated, with 2 Bronze Stars and a Purple Heart. Mr. Jeckovich was from Company H, the 2nd Battalion, the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II.
Okay?
Yeah, fine, that's fine. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. And we're on chapter 20 of page 598. It's titled Engaged in Wedding Plans. Mr. Jeckovich, before I open up the laptop to read your book, what's your dog tag number?
4209295.
Thank you, right on the money. Are you drinking liquor?
Oh, God, no.
Rather shoving this stuff down my
You're
throat.
drinking liquor, I think. No, Mr. Jeckovich has never drank liquor or beer in his life. He's never smoked or drank.
This one's gonna be a short one because I gotta put in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We're at 18.
So this is going to be a short one today because we're running out of tape. We're on Studio 6Z, and we don't have any tapes in inventory, so we're going to mark it down to 18 minutes. Very unusual. There's 292 podcasts of Mr. Jeckovich, and this particular one is going to have to be shortened due to lack of tapes. Mr. Jeckovich is a highly decorated World War II veteran. As I said, with a Purple Heart and 2 Bronze Stars. Mr. Jeckovich was shot in the shoulder by a sniper, and then later he was bombed, and a lot of shrapnel is still in his body. He recovered 3 to 4 months in a Paris hospital, and when they put a bandage on it, and his index finger was able to work to pull the trigger, and he was able to walk. What do they call you?
Fit for duty.
Fit for duty.
Fit for duty,
Fit
yeah.
for duty. So during a major war, if you're able to pull the trigger, your index finger works, and you're able to walk, you're fit for duty. Today, 2024, that would never happen. But back then, they needed a lot of men. What kind of men did they need during World War II?
Young, 19-year-olds, 33 years.
The code for that is 33, and 33 means 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And those are the young men that are able to fight the best. It's ironic, if you take a 19-year-old in war, and you compare him with a 35-year-old, it doesn't work.
He'll never make it.
A 35-year-old might think he's full of piss and vinegar and he could do it. But in reality, in 90% of the cases, he simply can't cut it. Even when you pass over 25, you just don't have it as a 19-year-old would. And during the war, there was 15,400,000 young men and women that were in World War II. We lost 14,500,000 already. We have less than 100,000 left. Most of those are rear echelon. What did rear echelon do, Mr. Jeckovich?
There's to support people, to take care of the people on the front line.
Very important. They weren't on the front line, but they were very important duty, right, Mr. Jeckovich?
Yeah.
And Mr. Jeckovich was on the front line all the time. Never rear echelon, never with the proper clothing or equipment. He still has frostbite, trench foot, all kinds of elements from the war. Who got all the heavy-duty clothing and boots?
People in the back.
And did the people in the back ever need it?
No, they were sitting in warm
But
offices
they had
and
the
everything else.
connections.
Huh?
They had the connections to get it.
Yeah.
They had the connections.
No, they picked it up when it came through. They just grabbed it.
They just grabbed it. Mr. Jeckovich, we nicknamed him the super soldier. He's been stabbed, he's been beat up, he's been bombed, he's been shot. Lived out in the snow during the Battle of Bulge for at least 2 or 3 months. And this was, by the way, the coldest record in that area in 30 years. It was.
Yeah, we couldn't sleep in houses. We had to go to the barns.
Tell us why you couldn't sleep in houses, Mr. Jeckovich.
Because the Germans would zero in on the houses.
And then what would happen?
Well, they'd kill the people inside of it.
Blow them up.
Yeah.
Mr. Jeckovich has a lot of important facts in his book, and I isolated a few of them just for general knowledge. But we're on the chapter where he's getting engaged, but we always have text messages going back to the Battle of Bulge, because that's one of the most famous battles during World War II. This is when Hitler committed suicide, and he was basically out of the picture as the Battle of Bulge. But the Battle of Bulge was Hitler's last-ditch effort. Hitler's last-ditch effort to kill Americans. Kill Americans. He knew his days were numbered, but his last-ditch effort, and they did kill a lot of Americans during that time. And Hitler was living by the scorched earth theory. Not only was he killing Americans, he was blowing everything up.
Oh, yeah.
If he can't have it, nobody could. But some of the facts that Mr. Jeckovich put out in his book, I'll randomly read them because they're interesting. They're spread out. The popular orange drink, Fanta, was invented in Nazi Germany to replace soft drinks, American soft drinks, which they didn't want to import anymore. However, Germany had a lot of supplies, did not have a lot of supplies to make the drink, and didn't want to import anything for it. They made the flavoring syrup out of rye, which is spoiled milk, and apple skins and seeds. The name came from the German word Fantasy, meaning imagination, but they had to use their imagination when making it. Another important fact is the swastika. Mr. Jeckovich tells us the swastika, which the Nazis used on their flag and uniforms, was actually,
12.
was actually an Indian symbol for the sun. This is why, if you pick up the first edition of Rudyard Kipling's famous book, The Jungle Book, you'll find that he has a swastika on the cover page. So it was an Indian symbol for the sun. Hitler personally designed the Nazi flag, choosing the color red to represent the political idea of Nazism, and white to represent nationalism, and black to represent the German struggle. So Hitler's flags were basically white, red, and black. And here's another interesting point. Mr. Jeckovich freed many people from concentration camps. Many people were down to 60, young soldiers were down to 60 and 70 pounds. And when you're breaking the locks, when you're busting the locks on those camps with bolt cutters and machine gun fire, what were you told not to give the POWs?
Food, don't give them food.
And why is that?
Because their system is upset.
Yes. And most of those young boys died. And an interesting fact, when Mr. Jeckovich busted the locks with many soldiers, the conditions were horrible. Even the most seasoned soldier couldn't believe it. However, 20 yards from the filth and the starvation was the Nazis' offices, where they had the SS working in the upper level.
Yeah.
And then they had the secretaries. And the secretaries were equally as guilty as the SS or the officers, because they stood by and watched it. And what happened then was they they nicknamed those secretaries, because they're all big and heavy, because they're eating everything under the sun. They got the best food and they ate everything under the sun, while the young American soldiers are down to 60, 70, 80 pounds. So Mr. Jeckovich and some of his fellow workers, they named these secretaries fat fucks. They were nicknamed fat fucks.
Yeah.
And they just didn't let them go. They made them come 20 yards to the actual camp, helped get the boys started walking and picked up. Many were dead. And they took these fat fuck secretaries and made them drag them to the pit where they eventually be burned and buried. So it's interesting. These secretaries weren't innocent victims. They were later, and still in the 2020s, were still being prosecuted for their devious acts or inhumane acts that they participated in. So the fat fucks didn't have a nice ending. So another interesting point, this is getting back to developing concentration camps. The Nazis considered getting rid of the Jews by shipping them to Madagascar. The way that Britain had tried to get rid of its criminals by shipping them to Australia. It was interesting, back in the day, Britain was trying to get rid of all their criminals by shipping them to Australia. Yeah. And now Hitler's trying to get rid of all the Jews by shipping them to Madagascar. But as you fast forward in the situation, Hitler wanted to ship the Jews to Madagascar while Great Britain was shipping the criminals to Australia. Fast forward 80 years, we got all the countries around the world emptying their prisons and concentration camps, at prisons and sane asylums, and just dropping them on the door of America. So how things have went around a great big circle. A great big circle. Another thing Mr. Jeckovich pointed out, that many people didn't know about it, but they should, is that many cruel and inhumane medical experiments were carried out on prisoners in concentration camps. The Nazi regime was very interested in scientific discovery, especially what they believed that with a lot of science up until the point had been done by the Jews, and it was therefore no good. So the Nazis did not acknowledge whatever the Jewish population did before the war as far as any worthwhile medical experimentation or cures for illnesses. The experiments were so gruesome and inhumane that the results from them are not legally not allowed to be used today. They would basically cut people up with nothing to freeze it. There was no pain relief, nothing. It was a horrible situation.
Pull their teeth out.
What, pull their teeth out? No, it was anything you could imagine was horrible. Horrible situation. And many times, these so-called, I use the word so-called doctors, they were just doing to get a kick to see how much pain they could inflict on these poor Jewish people. Another thing, the most famous experiments were carried out by Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was interested in the twins and used 3,000 pairs for his own experiments, out of which only 200 survived. So he'd have the Germans round up this Nazi prick doctor, 3,000 twins, and he did all these horrible, inhumane experiments on these 3,000 sets of twins, and only 200 of them actually survived. One experiment involved sewing two twins together to see if they could create conjoined twins.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how fucking painful that would be?
Yeah.
Sewing two people together and having to live out their life like this? These bastards are all rotten in hell right now. They are all rotten in hell right now. On the other side, Nazis collected a lot of money and valuables from the victims of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
The Nazis basically stole everything the Jewish people had.
All the art, yeah.
They collected a lot of money. And imagine these stupid motherfuckers today that say the Holocaust is a hoax. How stupid are you? The Holocaust is not a hoax. Wake up. Get up, yeah. They put them into the bank accounts under the false name of Max Heidler. Minutes, please.
Four.
Another interesting fact, the SS Heinrich Himmler was a really devious bastard.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is rotten in hell. He's burning right now. Before leader of the SS, Heinrich Himmler, one of Hitler's right-hand man, was a chicken farmer before he
Yeah.
became that. Tell us the interesting story when a young 19-year-old German soldier had to drop on you. Tell you how that went.
Well, he was as young as I was. He was coming and I was going.
And he had to drop on you.
Yeah, and my ammo was down, and he come up to me, looked at me, smiled, turned around, and went back.
And he walked with his back towards you, knowing damn well
Yeah.
that you weren't going to shoot him in the back.
Yeah.
I hope that young boy had a long life and a beautiful life, because he's an example what the German people could and would be.
Yeah.
What happens if that was an SS?
Well, they shoot me in the back.
The SS, you'd have been dead.
They would hesitate.
So by the grace of God, you're here today, that you're ready.
Yeah.
19-year-old boy that had a drop on you. He had a drop on you. And that was like coming out of a foxhole or something?
No, we're on a culvert. The culvert.
Okay. Yeah. An interesting fact what the United States and Canada did, they'll never do this today. In Canada and the United States, thousands of Japanese Canadian and Japanese American citizens were rounded up and put in internment camps. The official reason for this was to protect them from the racists in their own neighborhood. But the actual reason was that the governments worried about the Japanese in Canada, and that the U.S. was more loyal to Japan, and that the U.S. were more loyal to Japan than to the Allies,
Yeah.
and they might spy on with the Japanese during the attack.
And they put them in internments in California.
Yeah, that is such an interesting part right there. Those random facts really, An interesting fact, the Pacific was a hellhole.
Who?
The Pacific
Oh, yeah.
was a hellhole. Interesting fact, 3 of the Japanese soldiers didn't quit. One finally died in 1954. He was still fighting the war. And the other one in 1972. Finally, in February 1974, a man named Nario Suzuki found around and found out that he was not going to surrender until he received orders from his officer. A lot of these guys were so fanatical that 30, 40 years after the war ended, the Japanese were still fighting it in the fields in that dirt.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
Fanatics, they were fanatics.
Minutes, please.
One minute.
So that was so interesting, and I'm sorry we have to cut this reading short. We just don't have the equipment right now. But we will tomorrow to pick it up.
I do have.
Did you want to say any words? We only have a minute left, Mr. Jeckovich.
You what?
Do you want to say any final words? We only have a minute left.
Oh, no, a minute left.
Yeah, because we don't have the right tapes. And
Oh, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for looking out after me. You and Jen. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, we thank you for the beautiful things you did in writing this book. You passed it on to generations to
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, but don't lose that book. I don't see that book.
It's right there in
Yeah,
the bag. I
yeah.
keep it all the time.
It's all safe, John.
Huh?
It's safe.
You'll never lose that book.
Yeah.
In fact, a copy will be in the World War II History Museum in New Orleans.
Yeah.
24 seconds.
So you never have to worry about that. And our great friend Nancy has the original copy. So if all hell breaks loose, Nancy has the original copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's beautiful.
How did I give Nancy the first?
I don't know, I'm glad you did, because it's unread and it's in perfect condition.
It's in perfect condition.
It's in perfect condition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So Nancy,
How did-